Generative AI and foundation models have reached unprecedented capabilities. At the same time, it's not magic, and so it all comes down to using it with good judgment, knowing that at the end of the day, it's math, and as such, it can fail. Embrace AI, but always using our own brain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Exchange podcast. I am Danny Thompson, the Director of Technology at this Labs, joined with Rossella Vital, the VP of Engineering at Sprout Social. And we have a very interesting approach today's podcast. We're going to be covering a lot of very, very nuanced topics, especially around AI as a whole, but going far deeper into the topic compared to the average person speaking about it. And hopefully you get some ideas on how you can be approaching your AI initiatives in your companies. Rossella, if you can real fast, maybe giving some background of yourself to listeners who may not necessarily be familiar with you, who you are, or some of your accolades.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm super excited about this conversation. Hi everyone, I'm Rossella. I'm VP of Engineering at Sprout Social, as Danny mentioned. I have been in the AI, machine learning, data science space for way longer than I would like to admit. It's been almost 20 years. Fell in love with AI during my grad studies. That brought me to start a career in academia at first, loving innovation, and then in the industry. I had the privilege of working in many different industries, from retail, e-commerce, to SaaS, tech, financial services, as well as many different organization types, from high growth startups to Fortune 100 enterprise and everything in between. Common denominator of my entire career has always been a deep love for AI and creating value for the company and society through AI, and building amazing high-performing teams that make the magic come true. That's me.
You know, earlier as we were discussing certain things, and basically right before we hit the record button on this, you said something that really stood out to me. And I think a lot of people recognize this, that AI has been around for quite some time. But you said a specific number that kind of threw me off a little bit. And I think we can all agree in the last several years, AI has had a boom, not just in the tech sector, but other sectors as well. But one big sector that a lot of people I don't think necessarily saw it growing as big as it did is the consumer sector of all retail goods. Every industry is adding some form of AI in some way, shape, or form. In the last couple of years specifically, we've seen this resurgence, I think, obviously with OpenAI and all these other organizations really coming to the forefront of the discussion. What's happening, in your opinion, especially specifically to the role of, let's say, the data scientist, but also AI practitioners right now? What do you see essentially growing right now?
Yes, absolutely. AI has been around for a very long time, approximately 70 years. I think it was in 1956 that there was the Dartmouth conference, which is when the term artificial intelligence was coined. And since then, AI has been a growing field, getting closer from the research academia into the industry. And if we look back for a moment if we zoom out and look at the timeline, we can see a very clear evolution of what AI experts have gone through. So at first, in the early days, AI experts were mostly researchers. They would work in labs, maybe in defense. That was maybe the closest thing to industry, but it was very isolated. It wasn't. It was far from what we call today industry or product. It was with the internet and digital era that data science became, the term data science actually was coined around that time. And it became much, much closer to needs in companies. But it was still very much a back end, a one-time exercise. And the industry, the sectors that used it the most were financial services or health domain. So it was still very researchish, and still pretty isolated from the product. And it was with SaaS and consumer tech that things really shifted. And AI, machine learning, data science, they took a more and more dominant and relevant role for businesses. The big shift was that AI and data science became core to the product. And so all of a sudden, it wasn't only about making sense of data or providing making a prediction to provide recommendation. It was about the product itself. That increased the need to not only building models and having AI expertise, but also putting them in production and running them and maintaining them. And that's when the role of ML engineering became a thing. It didn't exist before that. And now, to your point, now we have foundation models and agents. And so things are changing again, and we are really at an inflection point. And I think we're seeing a new paradigm now emerging for what it means for AI experts.
That's interesting because you're right. We do have foundation models and agents now, and there are other areas that we're seeing like a lot of growth, whether it's trying to leverage models for certain levels of prompting. And I remember, we discussed that a lot of engineers, and honestly, it's not even engineers at this point, but a lot of individuals in particular, they almost feel as soon as they start interacting with some of these models or they start trying to prompt in certain ways, they get a level of confidence that, I already know how to do everything. But there are, for the lack of a better term, there's levels to this where certain prompts or certain structures or certain ways of interacting with the models can yield higher levels of results in certain areas compared to others, where some developers or engineers may not necessarily notice that or recognize that, and they feel like, AI writes bad code or AI does this incorrectly, and if I could just end up solving this problem in the same time period if I just did it myself in a certain way. What do you say to that, or what is your stance on that, or what is your belief?
Yeah, absolutely. Humans are fascinating, aren't we? We are excited and terrified of change. We forefront our own fears, and that clutters our mind. I think, like everything, it's all about judgment. AI, especially the recent advances with generative AI and foundation models, have reached unprecedented capabilities. We can do today things that a few years ago were unimaginable. At the same time, it's not magic, and it's not the solution to everything. It doesn't have an answer for everything. In many cases, it doesn't have a good answer for everything, but it's very convincing. It's the hallucination problem. And so it all comes down to using it with good judgment, knowing the limitations, knowing that at the end of the day, it's math. It looks and feels very human, but it's math. And as such, it can fail. I think that the best advice, the best approach that I've seen out there is to embrace AI in the most extreme possible way, but always using our own brain. And this is why, as much as roles and tasks will evolve, and there will be AI will be able to do a lot of our day-to-day tasks. Being an expert, it's still what differentiates people that will be able to turbocharge themselves with AI from people that are just using AI. In other words, when you are an expert in something, you know what the pitfalls are. You know what to ask. You know how to validate the answer from an LLM. if something feels odd, you can sniff it. There's something strange. If you're not an expert at all in that domain, then you can be fooled. So my trick that at least up to this point is working is to think of AI as a person, is to think of AI as a team member in my team that is an expert in something, and as such, I trust them, but I also know that they're human, so they could be wrong. And if I ask someone in my team to do something, I have enough familiarity or expertise in the domain to figure out to feel if something is off, and I will ask probing questions. And I do the same with AI. And I think that's what we should all do. That's what engineers should be doing. Software engineering is evolving, is being transformed. AI and software engineering are being democratized. The barrier of access have been eliminated. And it's a fact. It's happening. So either we jump on it with excitement and we push our own boundaries and figure out what bigger things we can do now that we couldn't before, or we will be obsolete very soon.
You know, this brings me a lot of interesting ideas. A couple in particular, you mentioned obviously AI has democratized the area, but we've also have foundational models and agents. And so my mind goes like a couple like angles in particular. And so it's like, are we at a stage now where you feel like we're just done building models? And if so, if the idea or necessity is no longer like a model builder, what is it? I know in the past you've said, or previously you said, like we're becoming like architects of intelligence. It's like a very powerful phrase, I feel. What does that even mean on a Monday morning that a traditional data scientist might not necessarily have right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe we will stop building models, but I do believe we will stop building models as we know it today. And let me unpack. Today, the Monday morning job of an AI scientist or data scientist, depending of title on the company, but whoever, the person expert in machine learning and AI, they build models. And usually the model is a self-contained, at the end of the day, formula. It takes an input and it provides a prediction, an output. Takes, for example, messages on social media, and we predict the sentiment. With agents and generative AI, I think we are experiencing a shift. The first one is that LLMs and generative AI will absorb a lot of these tasks. Today, you can ask an LLM, you can go on ChatGPT and say, tell me the sentiment of all these messages. And in most cases, it will be pretty good, pretty accurate. There are edge cases of niche industries, like actually social media is one of them, where the general foundation models are not as good as a fine-tuned one, but those are more edge cases. In general, I do believe that LLMs and generative models will replace the models that today are built in-house in businesses, in companies. However, what we will see is an ecosystem of intelligence. It's not going to be anymore about a sentiment model living in isolation in its own bubble. It's going to be a sentiment agent that works with many other agents to do a bunch of things, to provide, for example, a summary to the chief marketing officer every morning of things that they should know about. And these could include the sentiment, the ability to detect sentiment will be just one little piece of a much larger puzzle. And so that's why I think AI experts will become the architects of intelligence. They will the focus will shift in building the system and optimizing the system that manages all these different components, agents, standalone AI models, tools, data, third-party agents that live outside of the company ecosystem. So it's this system of intelligent components that need to be optimized altogether. And not to mention the component around evaluation frameworks and guardrails, detecting hallucinations. All these things become that have been true in AI since the beginning, but they used to be applied to one single model. Now they need to be applied at the overall system, and the complexity is much bigger. But this is still pure AI. Error analysis, that today we like to call it evals, but error analysis has been around since day one. It's how you measure how good your model is. And now it's going to be a system. So system thinking and critical thinking will become key skills of AI experts. The other shift, besides becoming architects of intelligent ecosystems, the other role, the other shift in role that I envision in AI practitioners is in becoming enablers. As we mentioned before, AI has been democratized. A software engineer and a product manager that know nothing about AI can now build an AI-powered feature in a matter of a few days, a few weeks. They connect to OpenAI or whatever third-party LLM, and they can launch an AI-powered feature without necessarily involving AI scientists or AI practitioners. However, to function at scale, this requires an enablement system. And so I think that the AI team will take on the responsibility of enabling, building the AI engine that enables the rest of the company to build AI solutions, AI features. So practically speaking, this will be an evaluation framework, best practices, edge cases, how to test continuous improvement, how do we take the feedback that customers will provide, they like thumb up or thumb down in the application, how do we bake it back into the solution? So all these things, I believe, will become the Monday morning responsibility of an AI expert.
So, certain roles like data analysts, among others, based on all this, how do you specifically see their role being affected? Is it changing? Is it not changing? Yeah. You have sometimes mentioned that, data analysts may soon manage an entire army of tooling. Like, what does that necessarily mean to you, and how do you see that evolving?
Yes, I think data analyst and data scientist role will shift dramatically. I envision that agentic data scientist or agentic data analyst will become the norm. These will be agents, and they already are in many cases. They already exist. I'm not imagining a future that is not there. It's already here. These are agents that are able to access data, find information, make sense of it, and provide insights, make recommendations, in some cases even take an action, do something about it. And this is exactly what data analysts and data scientists do. That's their day-to-day job. However, in order for this to become a reality, there are a few things that need to be true. The first one is the quality and the structure of the data becomes existential. Bad data kills agents. It kills also people. If you ask many data analysts and data scientists, they will tell you that bad data is a recipe for failure for them. However, we are humans. We figure things out. We talk to other people. We connect the dots. We have judgment that agents don't have today yet. So for a company to be able to take advantage of agentic data scientists or agentic data analysts, they need to get their data ready for AI. This means very good data governance, data quality. It must be easy to find the data. Data must be discoverable. It must be trustworthy. Once you get some data, you need to know it's accurate. And it must be just in a good shape. There must be an architecture behind that makes sense. And the majority of companies are not there. So I think that there will be an investment in that space. Second, similar to what we were saying for AI practitioners, I believe around enablement, I believe that the same applies for data analysts. Data analysts and data scientists will focus on creating the best practices, the guardrails, the method to write a good prompt or to tweak the prompt, ways to validate the answers, to make sure that the answer is correct. And so it's again that it's the scaffolding to enable the entire organization to use agents for data analysis at scale. And lastly, your point around the supervision and managing an army of agents, I think that is going to happen before we know it. I believe that the role of data scientists and data analysts will become about managing agents, delegating the analysis to them, and then reviewing the analysis, just like a manager would do today. It also opens a very fascinating topic, maybe for another episode, around what does it mean to build high-performing teams of agents. The manager will give feedback to the agents, will provide context, and agents will improve, but some will shine, some will not. So what does it mean to fire an agent or promote another one? It will be a very fascinating evolution of workforce.
You bring up some interesting points, but we've talked about the role specifically with some of the components of an organization. But what does leadership actually look like in all of this? And how can, I guess, AI experts actually help their companies adopt? But what do you see that evolution currently looking like right now?
Yes, absolutely. This is something I'm very excited about because everyone is trying to figure out their AI strategy. There isn't a single executive out there that has this big question. They know that they need to do something in AI. In some cases, they want to become AI first. They want to lead in AI, but they don't know what that means. And that's where AI experts can help. They can bring leadership besides their technical expertise, but they can bring actual, practical, valuable, strategic leadership to their executives, to their leaders. They can help distill the noise from the signal. They can help their company understand what is hype, what is real. They can map everything that is happening in AI to what matters for their specific business. They can help understand where disruption is happening or will happen. And they will provide the guidance to their company on where should they lead versus follow. What will differentiator look like in this AI world where the how do you say in English, the playing field has been leveled?
Yep, that works.
Okay. It's correct, or you got it. But basically, now that we live in this world where uh, everyone, the playing field has been leveled, what is a differentiator? And it's going to be different from what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And AI experts are uniquely positioned to provide that advice. The most, besides this higher level strategic help, one of the most valuable contribution that I've seen AI experts bringing to the table is to build prototypes. It's very hard today for non-AI experts to capture the nuances between what is going to be real 10 years from now versus what could be possible tomorrow if we invested in building that specific thing. And so building prototypes, building proof of concept, and showing how this AI innovation could come to life is the best gift that anyone can bring to their executive or leaders. It makes everything much clearer, and it makes all following conversations around strategy and a roadmap and resources and budget so much easier.
Well, let me ask you this. In this new age, with everything that we're discussing from the developers to the leadership level, what roles, if any, or what kind of skills are becoming more valuable in this? Do you see new roles being created, like AI product manager or something along those lines? And what skills do you think will help maybe not just stay with the trend, but maybe excel within this field?
Yeah, yes. Let's start with skills closer to AI practitioners that will be relevant, I think, for AI practitioners, and then we can expand beyond AI experts to include product managers and engineers. So we already talked about the system thinking that will become pivotal, as well as critical thinking. The other skill specific to AI experts that I think will emerge more is a revamp of some of the old school AI techniques like multi-agent systems, reinforcement learning, genetic algorithms, basically all, and there are many more, but all those techniques that are designed to optimize systems. And this will become more and more important as we build, we talked before about AI experts becoming architects of intelligent ecosystems with many components. And so that's where methods like multi-agent system, reinforcement learning, genetic algorithms, they optimize the reward mechanism, the evolution, and the we mentioned before agents that are high performers versus not, and that's exactly the science and the AI techniques to do that. So I think there will be a revamp of those techniques, which is funny because they have been considered very academic and niche, and they have been a little snubbed out over the past decade, and now I think they will be really important technical skills for the AI practitioners. More in general, I think everyone will need the system thinking and critical thinking that we talked about. I believe that AI PMs, AI product managers will become the norm right now because not all PMs are familiar with AI. I believe there will be a new role emerging, and we already see it very often, of PMs that maybe come from a technical background or had the opportunity to work on AI so that they can understand the technical landscape, they understand the feasibility, the pitfalls. I wouldn't be surprised if many AI practitioners today become AI PMs in the near future because they're best positioned to understand the technical context, and if they have strategic thinking and product thinking, then they will be the best positioned to play that role. regardless of background, I believe that skills um, more than skills, tasks like writing evals, evaluating models and agents and LLMs will become a common skill that PMs as well as engineers will need to have. And let's see what else. There might be a rise of annotators. We saw this a few, maybe a decade ago, when there was a need, there were teams or companies, and they still exist, that you can pay to annotate data, because the key to build good models, good AI models, when they're supervised, is to have a very good training set with labeled data. Now with LLMs, it's become even more complicated because the answers are not just binary or in one specific category. They're not black or white. They are subjective. The level of accuracy is nuanced. So I wouldn't be surprised if entire companies or maybe roles in an organization were dedicated to annotating the output of the models.
Do you think leadership as a whole is going to change because of this?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we're already seeing it with the rise of the chief AI officer. And if we think about it, if we zoom out for a moment and look at the history of technical leadership, we can see a very insightful pattern. So bear with me for a second. Let's embark and go back in time. If we think about the 80s, that's when the CIO role emerged. Businesses starting adopting computing systems, so they needed someone at executive level that would help with information technology management, data centers, security networks, these kind of things. So it was very much a support function, and the goal was pretty much keeping the lights on. Then in the 90s, with the rise of internet and software in general, technology became the product. Or even if it wasn't the product, it was much, much closer to the actual value creation. And in many cases, it became a differentiator. And so that created a shift into a new role, which was the Chief Technology Officer. And it represented the evolution from technology as a cost center into a value creation. And technology was more about innovation and engineering. It was literally the product. So now we're seeing a very similar shift with AI. AI is not anymore just a feature. It's not anymore just a tool. It's becoming the heart, the engine behind the strategy, the differentiator, and very often it's the product. That's part of what AI first means. It's the product. And that's why we have seen over the past decade the rise of chief AI officer. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a merge of chief technology and AI officer. Maybe there will be the creation of a new role called chief AI and technology officer. Even if that doesn't happen, I think that the two roles will coexist for a while, but the boundaries between software and data and infrastructure, they're really, and intelligence, they're blurring. It's really becoming one thing, which is why I think that either the CTO role and title will evolve into chief AI officer, or there will be some new separation of roles similar to what we saw with CIO and CTO, and now maybe CTO and Chief AI Officer. We'll see.
Rossella Vital, thank you so much for doing this. I think this was a really great conversation. Hopefully a lot of leaders end up getting a lot of value out of this. Rossella, if people want to find you or talk to you after this, where should they find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Perfect. For everyone that wants to possibly connect with Rossella or maybe even see some of her talks, you'll find links in the show notes in the description down below. If you enjoyed the podcast, please drop a like on it or send us, any feedback that you may potentially have for potential guests or questions in the future. Outside of that, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.